You use your cell phone every day, since billions of calls are made each hour by you. The invention of the telephone, aka telephone system, and changed the world as we know it. And ironically, the inventor of the telephone could not pay the $10, that's $10, 1854 to 1876, to patent it. His name was Antonio Meucci, an immigrant who built the first working telephone in 1854, 20 years prior to Alexander Graham Bell receiving his patent. Antonio Meucci's life has been overlooked by history, but he was essentially the first person to invent an electric telephone/telegraph. Bell, who was one of the wealthiest men in America at the time, ended up taking credit for the invention of the telephone, thus leaving Meucci to die in poverty while watching his work be acknowledged by others. Antonio Meucci was born in Florence, Italy in 1808. He was trained as an engineer and worked as a stage technician at one of the most famous theaters in Europe, Teatro della Pergola. In 1835, Antonio Meucci moved from Italy to Cuba to work at another famous theater, Gran Teatro. When he arrived in Cuba, he began working with electricity and began developing an interest in acoustic devices. Antonio Meucci and his wife Esther immigrated to Staten Island, New York, in 1850, where they had no money or no friends, but shared dreams of improving their situation. Esther developed a severe form of rheumatoid arthritis, where she would eventually become bedridden and unable to leave her bed. Meucci's laboratory, in the basement, was located a good distance from Esther's bedroom. In his need to communicate with his ailing wife from his working space, Meucci implemented this ambition by inventing a method of communication. In 1854, Antonio Meucci invented the device he referred to as the teletrafono, which was in essence the telephone, utilizing electromagnetic coils to transmit voices via copper wire. He connected wires from his basement laboratory to the bedroom of his wife, allowing for the first time in recorded history for humans to have voice communication across electrical wires. For several more years, Meucci constructed over 30 different models of his teletrafono, systematically improving each new design. In 1860, Meucci publicly demonstrated his invention of the teletrafono in New York City, generating positive press about it in the local Italian-language newspapers. He attempted to locate investors, but found no takers. Meucci was a newly arrived immigrant with a difficult-to-understand accent. With no financial means to market his teletrafono, given prevalent bias at that time, Americans were just not ready to accept that a poor Italian immigrant could create anything innovative. In 1871, Meucci filed a patent caveat for his teletrafono invention, which provides legally binding temporary evidence of an invention less expensive than a permanent patent. Meucci was already deeply in debt and couldn't afford to renew the initial $10 caveat each year. Meucci subsequently sent designs and models of his invention to Western Union in the hopes of having their financial investment. Western Union stated they lost the documents. In 1874, Meucci was unable to pay the $10 annual renewal on his patent caveat, and thus his protections under patent law lapsed. In 1876, 3 years later, Alexander Graham Bell applied for his formal telephone patent at the same patent office where he submitted his other 2 applications. He became famous immediately. Meucci became very upset about this incident because he believed that Bell saw the plans that he made for his telephone when Bell worked for Western Union, and he thought Bell had stolen his invention. Meucci took legal action against Bell, but he could not afford a lawyer. Moreover, there was no evidence to support his claim against Bell, since Western Union claimed to have lost the plans he submitted to them. In 1885, the government had launched an investigation against Bell's patent on the basis of alleged fraud. But Meucci was already very old and sick at this time. By the time Meucci had died in Staten Island in 1889, at the age of 81, his claim against Bell had died with him. After Meucci's death, Bell became extremely wealthy, and the Bell Telephone Company became the AT&T Corporation, which today is worth hundreds of billions of dollars worldwide. For over 100 years, Bell has been credited in history as the inventor of the telephone, while Meucci has been all but forgotten. That changed in 2002 when, after 113 years of silence, the United States Congress passed a resolution declaring Antonio Meucci the true inventor of the telephone. The resolution declared if Meucci had paid the $10 fee to renew his caveat, then Bell would not have been granted a patent. Just $10. That was the amount needed for Antonio Meucci to be remembered as an inventor throughout history. Every phone call, every smartphone, every piece of technology that we use in our lives today can be traced back to an impoverished immigrant from Italy who was unable to pay the small sum of $10. Subscribe now to read more about the unlucky geniuses, men and women with vision and intelligence who have made substantial contributions but never received any compensation for their inventions.